David Vincent Feliciano was born in New York City. He grew up in Hawthorne, New Jersey, 15 miles west of the city. His father was a community general surgeon. He was one of 5 doctors in Hawthorne. His father was also the doctor for the Board of Health and the Board of Education. Thus, David was always under close scrutiny. David was president of the Student Council at Hawthorne High School, and he was a 95-pound varsity wrestler, and eventually he beefed up to 103 pounds. David got his BS from Georgetown in 1966 and his MD from Georgetown in 1970. He graduated AOA and cum laude. This is David at medical school graduation with his mother, Anita. Family has always been important to David. His father, Vincent, who was a chief of surgery and a hospital chief of staff, was at every high school football game. He taught his son how to balance family and career, and David knows how hard this is. He said it's something that can be done. We're pleased to welcome to this meeting David's 2 sons, Douglas and David. We appreciate your being here. They're right up here on the front row. So David spent 8 years at Georgetown. Georgetown was founded in 1789. It's the oldest Catholic and Jesuit institution of higher education in the United States. So who are the Jesuits? Well, they're a Roman Catholic order of religious men founded half a millennium ago by the soldier and mystic Ignatius of Loyola. They're noted for their educational, missionary, and charitable works. They're dedicated to the good of all humanity. I think David learned these lessons well from his Georgetown mentors. David did his residency at the Mayo Clinic between 1970 and 78. He took some time off for service in the U.S. Navy, and he also did trauma and vascular fellowships to complete his education. He learned the Mayo Brothers statement very well, where it's taught to all, from the top to the bottom, that the patient is number one. This is one of David's Mayo mentors, John Van Heerden. David's not a smoker or a midnight toker, but he is a joker, even at that young age as a surgical resident. He still got a grade A. And then he got a grade A after he left the Mayo Clinic. In addition to Dr. Van Heerden, who won the Mayo Clinic Distinguished Alumni Award in 2009, David was given this distinct honor last year. It was hard to put this talk together because about every week I'd get another award that David had won. So David's Navy time was served at Port Hueneme in California. This is home of the Navy Seabees, the Navy Sea Battalions, whose motto is, we build, we fight, we do the difficult immediately, the impossible takes a little longer. David's done the impossible. So after his Navy time and residency, when he finished all that, he went to Houston. He was director of the Surgical Intensive Care Unit at Ben Taub Hospital at Baylor. In '89, he moved to Rochester, where he was trauma director at Strong Memorial Hospital, and he was vice chair of the Department of Surgery at the University of Rochester. This is the announcement in 1991 when David was appointed chief of surgery at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. And thus began 2 decades that will live in surgical history. Of David's 38 teaching awards, 11 were at Emory. He was named the best attending in the Emory Department of Surgery in 96, 98, 99, 2000, 2003, 2004, and 2005. He won the Amerson Teaching Award given by the surgical chief residents in 97, 98, and 2006. He was given the Emory University Dean's Teaching Award in 2002. He trained 30 fellows in trauma and critical care at Emory. In 2013, he moved to Indiana University, where he was chief of surgery and was the Battersby Professor of Surgery, as well as chief of the Division of General Surgery. In 2016, he received the Teaching Legends Award from the Indiana Department of Surgery. He has over 300 publications and 200 book and book chapters. He has done visiting lectureships in 122 times, including 55 named lectureships. He's been president of the Southwestern Surgical Congress, the Western Trauma Association, the Mayo Clinic Priestley Society, the Pan American Trauma Society, the Atlanta Surgical Society, the Georgia Surgical Society, and the American Association for the Surgery of Trauma. At the 75th anniversary of the AAST, all the past presidents were interviewed. This is what David said in part of his interview. With the privileges we have to get this far in our lives, with all the people who have been involved in training us and supporting us, I like to see surgeons giving something back. Whether this is serving your community, setting up a hospice, training residents, writing papers that will help the community surgeon get better, volunteering, I don't really care what it is, just give back. David can talk the talk, can he walk the walk? Of course. Listen to what some of his residents have said. In his first day on the job at Grady, Dr. Feliciano said, "There will be an attending on every case." Later that week, one of the residents met him for morning report. "I had drained a thigh abscess by myself as a junior resident the night before." Where was the attending, Dr. Feliciano said. That was the last case that resident did without an attending. Another resident remembers these fateful Feliciano words: "Every sick patient gets admitted to surgery, especially pancreatitis, GI bleeding, and diverticulitis. He always said, patient care is number one." It was the same when Dr. Feliciano was at Atlanta Medical Center, according to another resident. "We had a Fournier's Grand Green at 11 p.m. He was new there." "Get him ready, I'll be right there," Dr. Feliciano said. "By the way, where is the elevator?" He did everything on his first day on the job. And then this is my favorite. Dr. Feliciano was seeing a sick patient when his tie got caught in the patient's blood. "Give me a pair of scissors, please," he asked, and he cut off his tie. Amy Wierzchowski, a Feliciano student, fellow, and faculty, said this: I first met the boss, as we all call him, when I was a timid medical student interviewing for a surgery residency spot. He was amazing and absolutely captivating. He embodied everything that I wanted to be. I pursued a fellowship in trauma and critical care because I wanted to be like the boss. To this day, every time I'm sure, I ask myself, what would the boss do? Chad Ball, another Feliciano fellow, remembers this event. Chad said, "When I moved to Atlanta for my fellowship, my car was totaled 2 days prior to the move. That meant renting, and the only available rental was a purple PT Cruiser. I did my best to hide that car in the parking garage every day. However, one evening, I actually passed Dr. Feliciano, who was in his Corvette, on the highway, hoping he hadn't seen me. The next day, he passed me in the hospital hallway, looked over his glasses, and said, 'Nice cruiser.' No smile, didn't break his stride. He's a man of incredible subtlety. So why should Chad be surprised? Wouldn't a retired hydro powerboat racer love a purple PT Cruiser? Jamie Coleman remembers a time she sat next to Dr. Feliciano at the Southern Surgical. He had his phone out, Jamie said, and was kind of muttering at it. Then he asked me if I owned a BlackBerry. I replied no. But knowing his technological struggles at the time, I asked if I could help with anything. He says that since I didn't own a BlackBerry, I probably couldn't help, but that somehow his phone is now all in Chinese characters. And he doesn't know how it got that way. And he doesn't know how to undo it. I told him to hand me his phone, thinking he was being a bit facetious. But in fact, the language on his phone had somehow been changed to Chinese. In about 3 button presses, I had to change back to English. He kind of harumphed at me and then said, "Hey, while you're at it, I've got an alarm go off on my phone at 3 a.m. every day. And I can't seem to figure out how to undo it." I then asked, "Boss, how long has it been going on?" He said, 3 months. I asked him incredulously if he'd been waking up at 3 a.m. every morning for the past 3 months to turn it off. And he says, yes. How else can I turn the alarm off? Then I turned it off for him. Dr. Feliciano never stopped teaching. Listen to these words. I just want to take a second to thank you again for your talk yesterday. My name is Jack Mather. I'm a trauma fellow that showed you around the hospital. I think I speak for all the fellows when I say you are a genuine icon and a hero. As a surgical resident, I followed your work, read your research, and ventured into this career in much the same way as I imagine you entered into trauma. Out of a passion for treating the disease of injury, I'm appreciative of having the chance to speak with you yesterday. Juan Sarmiento, who spoke to us this morning, remembers when David visited him in Cali in 1991. When I was training back home in Colombia, Dr. Feliciano came to visit our hospital for a week just to observe the volume and management of trauma cases. That was the peak of the violence related to drugs, and we used to have at least 10 trauma laparotomies and 5 trauma thoracotomies a day. He was well known in the world of trauma, and he had already published his landmark book. Well, this famous surgeon chose to spend all week in the hospital, ignoring invitations to honor him and other accolades. He spent his time sleeping and eating in the hospital, doing cases all day and night, like a first-year resident. That really changed our vision of surgery as we recognized how he chose to stay and work with us with no signs of tiredness and with the utmost devotion to learn and teach at the same time. We were amazed at his passion and commitment to excel in the world of surgery. To this day, when I go home, they still remember his 7-day absolute immersion in the world of trauma in Cali. So is it possible to make David Feliciano better? Thank you, Grace. You've done the impossible. David Feliciano, he's a surgeon, he's a scholar, educator, master surgeon, Luddite. He's the most forceful spokesperson for the general surgeon today. He's president of all organizations wise enough to ask him to serve, as he has this past year with the Southeastern Surgical Congress. David, what an amazing year this has been. I thank you for giving this group new life, energy, and purpose in service and love of this great profession, which is ours.